I'm starting a new podcast where I'm going to be interviewing women in ministry, just to learn a bit about their journey and how they grew their ministry so that other women can learn from what they're doing. Today, I've got with me Tobi Olujinmi. She's a dynamic young Christian woman. She's been preaching since the age of 16. And not only that, she's ventured into the world of media to set up a media stroke charity stroke business that has ministerial aspiration. And it is called W Talk. I'm really happy that she could take a break from being with her children and husband during this lockdown to just come and share some insights about ministry. Hi.
Hello.
I like you're a baby. Hi.
No, not at all. Thank you. I'm surrounded by babies all day, so it's good. Thank you so much for having me. I love what you do. Love your work.
I'm looking forward to hearing about W Talk. I remember interviewing you when you first launched it, so it's been really good to see your journey. So I'm just going to go straight into the questions. So my first question to you is, what inspired you to set up W Talk? That's what your ministry is called, Ministry Business Charity. And what kind of activities does it actually carry out?
Yeah, I mean, as you can see, it is hyphenated. It's what we're building is just so beyond one, I suppose, strand, as it were. My background's law, so I always loved the law, but I've always loved media, and I've just always loved entertainment as a whole. So I merged it and wanted to do entertainment law. You know, had the privilege to sort of shadow and work with people, the greats of like Nina Shaw, who's a massive entertainment lawyer, reps Ava DuVernay now. I mean, all of them. Jamie Foxx, massive.
Because you studied in New York, right?
I did. So I qualified as a New York attorney before coming back home here.
That's how brainy she is.
So, I mean, it was great. And you know, as you said, I've been speaking and I've always loved the Lord and I love communicating, you know, the word of God to people. And I've been doing it since I was 16 and the worlds never collided. It was just, you know, when I'm ever humbled to be invited somewhere as an itinerant speaker, fantastic. And this was the career. But as I got, I suppose, a little bit older, just got married, I started to feel that void. I don't know if anyone's ever listening to this, ever felt that sort of, maybe it's a push to a new season, maybe it's but you just feel a nudge, you know, and I felt that nudge. And so and then I was sitting down watching TV, I was actually watching the Kardashians, as you do, last season. And I just, you know, I just looked and I just felt like, my goodness, how powerful. I mean, for the last sort of, you know, 2 decades, what have the Kardashians, how have they influenced and impacted culture, as it were, you know? And at that time I did a short sort of secondment at NBC Universal, and equally so NBC Universal, on their walls, they had, you know, the power we create the content we create has the power to change the world. And you look at the Kardashians and culture and you just think, gosh, you know. And then the following week, my friend put on this massive women's conference, and I was speaking there. It was fantastic. And you know what it's like if you're listening to this in your ministry, you know, you're there, it's great. But I just turned back and I just looked, lovely women. And I just thought, gosh, when I put down the mic, and it's great, you have a great time, but when I put down the mic, who's speaking to them? Where are they going to get their foundations of hope and you know, overcoming and resilience and, you know, all the things that we know we need? And I thought, gosh, they're watching the Kardashians. Like, that's that 360. And that's when I took that jump to W Talk. And so now we set it up a platform. It has an app. You know, it has aside from that, we have our independent production company, which is growing. And it's just really a 360 sort of content and community business to try and get content out into the world, so that we can continue what we're doing in these moments and these pockets and these conferences, and are all fantastic. You know, media has the power to change the world, and it does. So that's sort of what we do and the inspiration behind it, I guess.
So can you tell me some of the products or programs you've produced for your website?
Yeah.
I know you did a series, I think it was about, but forgive me, I think it was about Leah. Did you do something about Leah?
That's coming out, so that's actually, it's not out yet, but it's good. It's coming out very soon. Actually, that's been in development for a long time. And that's the good thing about what we do, is that TV takes a long time, and the internet takes a long time too, because we want to put out stuff that rivals, you know, what people can watch. So Leah is a perfect example of one of those things. I personally think I've always been very, not just because of my faith, but I find the Bible to be brilliant. And people, one of the questions I always get is, so boring. People say it's so boring. I'm like, really? So we want to bring it to life, and you know, in some of our storytelling, we want to push why we believe what we believe. And Leah is two sisters in love with the same man. I mean, you said it to someone, you're like, oh,
good story.
Yeah. So that's one of the perfect examples of what we're developing, and thinking about what it was like to, you know, if you go in scripture and in circles, they're like, oh, you know, Rachel. Everyone talks about Rachel because Jacob loved Rachel, right? But I just sat there and I thought, gosh, what would it have been like to be Leah? And just that unrequited love, knowing you love someone that doesn't love you back. So that's coming out. We always get in trouble for some of our content because we don't want to do preachy, you know, cheesy content. We want to do content that reflects life. So another one we had was, we got Encounters, which was a podcast, a little bit steamy, not as steamy as Bridgerton, but a little bit steamy in terms of
my eyes.
Yeah. In terms of just an older lady who's wanting to be celibate. I guess, again, sometimes in the, you know, in the church, and celibacy is like sort of resigned to, you know, youth conferences. But actually our demographic are a lot older. We are women. What you know, when you're late 30s, you know, early 40s, and you're not married, and you're still required sort of to say, to be celibate, what is that like? What is that tension like? So Encounters is a podcast around that. She meets a young man, and you know, the boundaries.
That's really good, because I remember listening to a podcast that was on your site about women that were single, and it was really interesting for me as a more mature Christian to hear the struggles of younger women in their late 20s and 30s, and recognizing that really not much has changed. You know, people are still, I was like, oh Lord, it was like, you know, the struggles are the same, the difficulties in kind of finding partners. And what was interesting was the women that were on your podcast were actually dating as well, and, you know, not meeting Mr. Right. So it was just good to sort of like, just hear the experiences of other women. And media does that. It brings us together, and it helps to increase, raise awareness, and just increase understanding of what people, women, younger women are going through.
I so agree. I think, and that's sort of the aim of W Talk, not just to have the content, but the community around it. So for us to really drop the mask, and which sometimes is all over social media, everyone looks so good, right? So for us, through our content, to sort of drop that, and then it sort of, in doing so, sends that message is, oh my gosh, I'm not alone. So I'm not the only one that's dealing with this dodgy guy then, you know.
No, it was good. It was good. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed listening to it. Kind of like, you know, one of the things about when you step out in ministry is the whole thing is about establishing and promoting it. You know, some women get stuck at that hurdle. They've heard from God, they've stepped out, but then they go stagnant. What have you done to kind of establish and promote W Talk?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing I would say is, I always say to people 3 things actually. One, what do you have in your hand right now? And I know that sounds extremely preachy, but you can only use the resource that you have. And I think social media and the time that we have allows us to actually have a great resource. You know, we've got Clubhouse now. You know, I went on it for a few minutes. I can see that's turning into a jungle too. But when I was on the Jungle Clubhouse, I realized that actually people weren't afraid to promote what they're doing. And no one could stop them. You know, you had people joining the conversation and saying, well, actually, I'm an engineer, or I was in a TV one, and people saying, well, actually, I've got a script. Would anyone be open to reading it? You know, I think you've got to know your why and know your message. And if you can get that message succinct, then you have actually the whole world at your fingertips. And I always say to people, if Donald Trump, the president, can be banned from Twitter, then how powerful is Twitter as a medium?
It's true.
Incredibly powerful. So
Very
one
true.
of the things that I would say to us, certainly in the ministry, sometimes we think, oh no, that's some worldly, or those are the people you want to, you hope to meet. So I would definitely say that is the first thing, in terms of just promoting it, using that resource that you have. It may not just be social media. Word of mouth is incredibly powerful. I still, you know, there's nothing wrong with it, but as a person, I don't really say, oh, you know, here's my show reel for speak. Word of mouth still does that. It's still powerful. So your inner circle, don't feel afraid to say to them, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm working on. Can you spread it to your inner circle? And it does go out. That's what we did with W Talk. I literally said, I'm going to start this, you know, this thing, and could you tell a friend to tell a friend? You know, and it grew out that way. And then the final thing is, I'll say, what you're not good at is also one of your greatest resources, because it tells you exactly what you need. So, you know, it allows you to start building your team. And so I think when anyone that's starting out in ministry, try and build beyond you. You know, try and build beyond you. It can't be a one-man band. If it's a one-man band, it starts and ends with you. So I sort of sat down and said, look, what am I not very good at? And everyone around my team, we don't have a massive team, but everyone on my team, that is what they're good at.
How many people in your team?
We have 5.
5 people?
Yeah, 5 core. Yeah, they're the core sort of people that help me with the pitches. They help me with the operational side. It all annoys me because I'm always like, on to the next, but that's because I'm not very good at it. And they're like, no, slow down, this is the detail.
All right, you're one of those kind of leaders, always doing something.
Yeah, I definitely, yeah. I'm like, okay, we've got this idea. Let's go, let's do it, let's turn it around overnight. And they're like, no, we're going to do this. We're going to turn it around here, because they're good at that. And we wouldn't have been able to have an app. I'm not tech. I'm not a tech founder. I wouldn't have been able to have an app without somebody who was more tech focused. So find out what you aren't so good at, that is able to support what you're about to build, and get those people around you.
Can I ask just a quick question about your app? How many people have you got subscribed to that now?
So now we've got over 5,000. Although we are, yeah, I know, we are pausing it and gonna, you know, it was our beta version.
They pay for it, don't they?
Well, yeah. Well, it's a freemium model, so you have some things, you get access to some, but if you pay as a subscriber and join the community, then you get
That's very good though, because it's just been very low key, because you've not done heavy promotion for that. So that's very impressive.
That's definitely our word of mouth. I mean, we are seeing how we can pivot it and see how we can reach more people, what it could be used for. And so we are looking at that now, and it's one of the exciting things that hopefully we roll out again this year. So
I'm impressed. Faith, prayer and scripture, or the word, you're a preacher, so you know, play an important part in the life of the believer. What role have they played in the development of your ministry?
Goodness, everything. I mean, that question is so bad, because for me, I think ministry, if I can be real with you, ministry turns into an industry very quickly. It can quickly sort of turn into an industry. And you can sort of get on that treadmill, and you just keep going. You're building, you're focused. We need more. How many subscribers do we have? What's our churn rate? How many people have cancelled? And you lose yourself, you lose your why. You lose actually your connection with the Father. That's what started all of this. It's my faith. It's my connection with the Father. So you got a 10 a.m., I don't know, or 7 a.m. meeting, and you sort of like, all right, cool, I'm gonna forget devotional today because I've got to prepare for the meeting. But actually, it's that whisper, that's that quiet time where you really get your instructions. So for me, one of the first things it's done for me is I've had to put habit, even when I don't feel like it. I've had to install habit in terms of I have to have that time, not just because of the business, but also just because of me and my personal faith and my personal development. But also, one of the other things it's helped me with is not to sweat the small stuff. Ministry, like any other industry, can get massively competitive. It can make you think, okay, well, actually, this person started a major business. What does this mean? It reminds me of who I am, you know, what I've been called to do, and what I sent me, and I can get, and that's enough. My identity can be found in that. I am not W Talk, you know, and that. And so prayer, meditation has allowed me to separate those entities, because the moment I become what I do, I'm on a really slippery slope to just discouragement, you know, and all the rest of that stuff. So for me, it's allowed me to keep those entities separate, and hear from the Father. Let's be honest. I said I want to, you know, I want to build a media company that changes the world. I want it to, you know, I want to have an independent production company that you know can stand against any of the greats. I have no idea what I'm doing. The blueprint comes from that quiet time. It comes from that quiet time. It comes from that sort of, okay, what's my next step? Or this has failed. There's been so many moments of failure on the journey. And you sit down, you think, gosh, this is rubbish. I feel rubbish. I left the law. You know, what it can really play in your mind, that you know, that mind. And so that quiet time in the scripture, that quiet time in meditation, in prayer, in fellowship too, and, you know, allows me to say, actually, I can go again. And this failed. I am not a failure. It separates the entities for me.
I think I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's always important to know the why, because when you know the why, particularly when you see other people going, particularly in the media industry, other people going fast, up there, famous, what have you, getting things that you would like to get. It can make you feel, Lord, what's going on here? But when you know that God is guiding your steps, it just helps to give you peace and contentment, which is kind of really, really important, so you don't go off track. So anyway, right, running a ministry is a walk of faith, as you know, because you've been preaching for 16 years, since the age of 16 rather. So what's the major kind of challenges you faced in terms of establishing W Talk, and how have you overcome them?
I can give you practical, it's that's another 360 answer, to be honest. Emotional, I spoke about identity as well. You know, when you see what I don't like to say competitors, to be honest, but that's what they are when you're going into the commercial space. We have market share, and you think, gosh, they're, as you said, they're going what seemingly is faster than me. And you can sit down and think, gosh, have I made the wrong choice? Or, you know, we released a reality show, Ramsey's Reality season, and the app broke that same week, and we couldn't find the bug, you know, on release week. It's all well and good, you know, when you're doing a small devotional, but when, you know, you're on BBC One Extra promoting it, you've been on Channel 4 promoting, and everyone's sort of like, oh, this faith-based reality show, you finally in that space that you wanted to get to, and your vehicle breaks down. It's those sorts of moments that, you know, I sat in the room, shut the door, turned off the light, and I just wanted to hide away from the world, Marcia. I just was like, what on earth is happening right now? And the developers call you, and you're like, tell me good news, still can't find it. It's in those sorts of moments that I am forced to surrender. You know, that we spoke about the why, that takes you back to your knees, because when you have success, you can start to get a bit like, yes. And God sometimes has to remind you that, you do. You start, even if secretly, you know, inside, you're like, oh, you know what? This isn't too shabby what we're doing here. And those sorts of moments remind me that actually God says to me, look, this ministry is not yours. This business is not yours. Whatever it is, that whoever's listening to this, it isn't yours. We are stewards. You know, even the Bible talks about, you know, God gives increase. Even if you plant, even if you water, it even says, except the Lord build a house, that man labors in vain. And those sorts of moments have always reminded me, you know, the facts that, look, this is the Lord's, you know, and he will do it, and it's for him. And so sometimes myself has been one of my biggest barriers in ministry, actually, getting over myself. Getting over my ego, getting over, you know, when you
have an ego.
Yes, I think so.
All right, okay.
And my family are brilliant for that, because, as I said, I've been preaching since I was 16. If I came back home, my mom would be like, the dishes are waiting for you.
All right.
Minister
Tobi. Right back to her.
Yeah. So that's always, I had to get over myself. Another big challenge, which I'm sure it's for everyone, I want to give it because I think it's an important one, and that's finances. I think a lot of people come to me and say, I don't have the money. And you know, you put on it, we're talking about events, costs money to put on events. You know, you want to, I don't know what else lots of people want to do, write a book, you know, all of it costs money. And so I definitely would say to that person to start small with what you have. You will be surprised. You know, we started in the podcasting world before podcasting was even podcasting, to be quite honest with you. And whilst I saw it was an industry that was going to pop off, it was because of the money, the resources. Now we're moving into TV gradually. you know, but it's a very gradual move into TV because of finances. So I would say start with what you have so that you can at least produce something. Don't sit down and say, well, I'm waiting for the million before I start the ministry. I think every person that I've ever spoken to that's running anything, finances is that big thing. And I would also say to that person in the ministry that don't be afraid to ask for people, to say for partners. You know, and I'm not talking about, you know, selling handkerchiefs online, but I'm talking about people who also, there's a lot of people who also have a passion for the media. I sit on a board called Christians in Media. There's loads of people. So I speak to people who have that shared passion, and they also will support financially. You'll be surprised, but if you don't ask, you don't get. So my two big things with ministries: one, get over yourself and that ego and thinking it's you, and remembering that you're always serving. You know, failure is not, you're always serving. And the second thing is those finances. Just keep going. Work with what you have, that, you know, the loaves and the bread and the fish, and work with that, but also ask for and see the opportunity for more.
Okay. W Talk is just one aspect of ministry that you've been involved with. As we've said, you've been preaching since you were 16.
Yeah.
How did you find being a young preacher? And how do you, I've moved away from what I've written down in the question. And secondly, how do you feel now in terms of the fact that you are actually kind of speaking, preaching maybe, and teaching on national radio? Did you ever see that in your future?
No, not when I started, not at all. You know, but I also, not that I'm likening myself to C.S. Lewis at all, but I've always loved the fact that people like C.S. Lewis were in the secular space. You know, they were bringing hope and they were bringing inspiration, and they were bringing faith at a time when the country was in great war. You know, so I'm humbled to be able to be on national radio. I'm humbled to be, you know, producing for them, or to be a broadcaster or a pundit or whatever that is. You know, Pause for Thought is something I do on Radio 2, and just starting there and be able to say, actually, I'm writing this script or this you know, this piece of inspiration, and it's going to go out to people. For example, now in a global pandemic, you never know where it's going to go. You never know where anyone's going to listen to it. I have to be humbled by something like that. And it wasn't something I sat down and thought, oh, I want to do that. It was sort of, as I took each little step, that was a door that opened. But when I did start, someone gave me a mic, actually. It was a lovely pastor. His name's, we called him Shepherd, but it's Pastor Yomi for New Covenant Church. And he gave me the mic, and he said, look, you are passionate about how you describe the word, teach this Bible study. And from the Bible study, it was a Sunday service. I love communicating the word because I think sometimes there's a disconnect from what we read and what we're experiencing in life. And what I don't think that's God's desire. I think it's for faith to really go into life, you know, to have that connection. So I you know, it's changed over the years. When I was trying to chase boys from 18, you know, yeah. And it was always interesting. I always say to people, because the boys used to always think, gosh, you know, she's the one to get because she's on the mic, you know. It's changed from that to now. But I think what hasn't changed is just my desire to, I suppose, communicate faith, hope, overcoming. That hasn't changed. I suppose the mediums and the way in which I want to do it as I've gotten older has changed.
Can you tell me a little bit, as a preacher, what kind of platforms you've been on? You know, you've most probably spoke at my conference. Yes. But you most probably spoken abroad. Just give us a little hint of the kind of places where you've been blessed to preach and take your message.
I don't know. I mean, as I said, I do the BBC. I do a lot of some do BBC Radio 2 and Radio 4 now. Spoken in the States. You know, a lot in ministries there. The UK is on fire. I'm a big, you know, Love Limitless. Can I shout out to the wonderful Ife Alexis, Love Limitless? There's a lot of younger ministries and movements in the UK. Mimi Ajala, you know, she has a conference. She did her conference in Excel. She's had a conference. She's from Bright Serenity, been doing it for years. I've spoken at a lot of church, New Testament Church of God, which is obviously a very big, you know, Caribbean. I've spoken at so many of their churches over the years. Wood Green, I've been at Wood Green a good few times. I do love New Testament Church of God. I mean, just you know, when
you've preached all over, basically.
Yeah, and I don't want to forget Flowing Rivers. You know, there's loads of sort of churches that you know, and I love being an itinerant minister because it allows you to almost, you get to see the breadth of the body of God and the body of God. Yeah.
What can I ask you? What have you had any comeback in terms of people saying how your inspirations on Radio 2 and Radio 4 have affected them? Have you had letters or anything?
Emails. I get emails, and that's so wonderful. And same with preaching. I don't want to undermine that, because I think that's always the one that stops me. When you look in Mashup in Wood Green or in Primark trying to get some shoes, and someone stops you and says, you know, and actually tells you the word, you spoke about the woman at the well, and it did, you know, and you just think, gosh, that, you know, I'm always humbled by that, because you think, why was it, you know, it's still like, why you listened, oh, that's good, and you remembered, you know.
Yeah, preachers are powerful,
you know,
preachers are powerful.
So, you know, they'll stop me. There was a lady that said, look, well, last time I saw you, you were pregnant, right? You were pregnant. I said, yes. And she said, you spoke, you know, she said, you spoke and you prayed for me. And I was in one of the darkest times of my life, she said, and I just want to thank you. And I was, you know, I say, you know, glory be to God, because, you know, his word,
you just never know what impact what you are saying is going to have. Yeah. So that's the blessing in kind of bringing a good word in good season. I would have thought and stuff. You're involved in media ministry, which, as you know, exerts a powerful influence over people and in society. In what ways would you say that your media ministry is impacting lives? You've already spoken about in terms of the BBC, you've spoken in terms of your preaching ministry, but what about W Talk? What are people saying about W Talk? Or what are women saying about W Talk in terms of how it's impacting them?
Media is extremely powerful. You know, we've seen Prince Harry, Meghan Markle get a deal with Netflix. You know, we've seen the Obamas get a deal with Netflix. These are world leaders, former world. Hillary Clinton's just, so everyone knows that it's a way to speak to the masses. And I think with W Talk, what I love about it is we want to speak to the masses, but we're not changing our local language, and the power of changing that local language. So we've had people come to us and say, oh my gosh, thank you for, it's nearly always the same thing. Thank you for being so real. Thank you for creating and having the boldness to say what we're thinking about. And I think sometimes in the church setting, you know, we all have to look prim and proper. We all have to come correct, and we're all blessed and highly favored. But you know, actually via the media, we've been able to touch taboo topics. We're producing a podcast right now on church hurt, and you know, and people, you can just hear the testimony. It's a platform where people are able to be unapologetically themselves, knowing that that's not undermining their faith. So people always say thank you for being so real, particularly, I mean, after encounters, as I said, lots of people came, we've got lots of, when season 2, but I'm seeing a guy right now as well. And, you know, these scriptures would be good. You know, in Christmas, we released a track called Carry Me in partnership with a lovely lady. And it was just a song of what, I mean, Marcia, we got so many things saying, this was the sound, this gave language to what I was feeling this year.
Okay.
So you just see, the thing about media is you can watch it on your phone, you can watch it in your bed, you can watch it under the covers, you can watch it on the toilet, you could be anywhere, but it's just you, and you can watch it on your device, on your phone. So it's becoming more and more intimate. And so who knows where people will watch this very interview and hopefully by God's grace be encouraged, you know, be infused to go again. So I think for us, we get lots of emails of that. We also get a lot of emails. One, people saying so real, other people saying this is inappropriate. And I love that too. I welcome people telling us it's inappropriate, because it just means that we are continually to push those boundaries on what we know people are experiencing.
I know the feeling. I remember once I did an article many years, most probably before you were born, now not really, but I did an article about how women were feeling about singleness. And back in the day when I was writing for The Voice, social media did not exist. There was no such things as app. People just read a newspaper, really. And the women were really real about how they felt. And people came back to me upset that they were so real. So I fully understand what people are saying to you and how you might be feeling like, really? You mean to say that women have to put on a mask and not be real about how they're actually feeling? And I was like, when people said, I was incredulous. I'm thinking, but why should people pretend to be feeling what they're not?
Exactly.
It's so important to be real. So it's really good to hear that you're hitting your generation with real stuff. Right, you're a young woman.
Yes.
Sorry, a mother and a wife. What would you say to somebody who is young? They may be married, may not be married, but feel called by the Lord to step up and step out into ministry, whatever that could be. What would you say to them? Pretend that I'm 20, like, you know, a 20-year-old asking you
Yeah.
this question.
Yeah, well, it's a question I get a lot as well. I would, you know, I would say stay close to the Father. He's the one that sent you, you know. Understand that why is he sending you to? Spend that time with him. Don't rush ahead. You know, don't get the call and rush. You know, if you look throughout the whole of scripture, lots of people got the call and there was a long time of training, you know, so that what you're doing isn't undermined. You know, we're in a social media world where people can buy followers and it looks like they have overnight success, but there really isn't any such thing as overnight success. So spend time with the Father. Other thing I would say is get yourself into a good community of female, you know, preachers or female people in ministry. I have a WhatsApp group, you know, with a lot of female preachers around my age on it. And it's great because, you know, they you know, I've got to mute it half the time. You know, we don't spend our time talking about sermons, but it's that encouragement. Put yourself in that sort of environment because you will flourish in it. And the third person is accountability. A true accountability, you know, person. When I write a script, particularly sometimes, you know, for the BBC, or if I'm about to do a sermon, I'll send it to people. I'm not beyond that. I don't want to miss it. I don't want to say something that's theologically incorrect. Sorry, let me.
Cool. She's got children, so
yes. Sorry, everyone. They're coming up. On how to...
I've got one more question, so it's cool. We're nearly finished.
Yeah.
It's cool. This is real life. You know, Tobi is a mother and a wife, and she's on lockdown. She's working from home, so you are going to hear children in the background. So it's cool. No problems. So last but not least, what exciting plans have you got for your ministry during the course of this year?
Yes, I love this question because it's so good. Because you know,
she goes,
I mean, you know, we have so many. As I said, the actual platform, we are moving a lot more into lifestyle content as well. We want to mix some lifestyles in terms of. We've been doing a little bit about it, but as you said, the podcast where they were talking about dating and, you know, that sort of stuff. We're going to be doing a lot more into that. We're thinking of doing some more visual talk show formats, with some preachers actually. To see, you know, they're not coming on to do sermons, they're coming on to really keep it real. So we've got that coming out. We've got Leo actually finally coming out this year. We've got some makeup sort of stuff. When I say makeup, I don't really even just mean makeup in terms of just tutorials, more just sort of like, what's the appropriateness? I always get that question about that Timothy and modesty and all of those sorts.
I think it's an important conversation to have, because when I go on to Instagram and I see how some Christian women are presenting themselves, it's like, whoa.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's an important conversation to have.
It really is, because, you know, I think we should be stylish, and I think we should, you know, God has called us to be modest. So what does that look like? And so we're going into that sort of lifestyle stuff. And then, you know, we've also got stuff with with TV, and our TV development continues, and we want to take, you know, some of the stuff that we've almost tested on our platform, you know, now to the masses. So your prayers for the TV space and the film space would be much appreciated, because, you know, they don't understand, they don't believe what I believe, you know, and that's fair enough. But we still want to be able to, you know, inspire and create stories which inspire the world. So that's lots of the stuff that we have coming this year. And the app, as I said, will take a more community format, so we can have a bit more, you know, back and forth in that space.
Okay, it sounds really exciting. Thank you for taking time out to share a little bit about yourself and what W Talk is doing. And if you want to find out more, just visit www.thewtalk.com. Yeah, I've got that right.
That's correct. You did, yeah.
Okay, that's good.
Thank you so much for having me, Marcia. I love it. I love what you do. You know, as I always say, you pioneered a lot of this media space, and so I'm always humbled.
Well, you're doing great things. I mean, you're just like, woo! You're just kind of going up there, touching on all kinds of things, and it's really, I'm being serious here, it's really good to see you on national media in that BBC space, sharing content, inspiring the nation. That's what we want to see with women that are preachers. So that's really, really good.
Oh, thank you, Marcia. God bless you.